Pay everyone, if you're here for the kind of secrets that make your chest tighten at 3 a. The ones you can't tell anyone else? Then listen close. I never planned to confess this, never thought I'd even admit it to myself. Raw and shaking after my brother died, my shy widow sister-in-law started begging me to sleep with her every single night. Just hold her, she said at first. Just be there so the dark wouldn't swallow her whole. I'm in my mid-30s, stuck in the same family house we all inherited because none of us could afford to leave, punching a clock at a job that feels like slow drowning. Life was quiet, empty, until she became the only face I saw every day. Her name is Emily. She was married to my older brother for 8 quiet years. Soft-spoken, always letting her long hair fall forward like a curtain. The kind of woman who blushed crimson at the smallest compliment and looked away. After the funeral, she just stayed. Now she's this fragile, beautiful ghost drifting through the same hallways in oversized black sweaters that swallow her small frame. Every time our eyes meet over the kitchen counter, something heavy passes between us, something unspoken that makes the air feel thicker, harder to breathe. It started with grief, the kind that hollows you out from the inside. I was the one who found my brother that morning, unresponsive in his bed, the silence in the room louder than any scream. The guilt of still being here, still breathing while he wasn't, it ate me alive every hour. Emily was the only one who understood that pain without needing words. She never pushed, never asked me to explain the emptiness. Cold, rainy evening, I finally broke down in the living room, shoulders shaking with sobs I couldn't hold back anymore. She sat beside me on the old couch, so close I could feel the warmth radiating from her body through the thin fabric of her sweater. Her small hand rested lightly on my knee, not moving, just there. That touch was the first real warmth I'd felt in months. Its end to slow, aching current up my leg, and for a second I forgot how to exhale. God, even now my face burns remembering it. She didn't say anything at first. Just let the rain tap against the windows while her fingers stayed pressed against my knee, light as a secret. I could smell the faint lavender from her skin mixing with the damp hair, soft and clean and so alive it made my chest tighten. I told myself it was nothing, just comfort, just two broken people sharing the same heavy silence. But something in me shifted that night, like gravity had tilted slightly toward her. We began sharing late-night tea in the kitchen after that. She'd pad in wearing my brother's old gray sweater, the one that still carried the faintest trace of his cologne mixed with her own gentle lavender scent. It wrapped around her like a memory she couldn't let go. Our conversations started short, careful, then grew longer, the silences between words becoming almost comfortable. I'd catch myself staring at the way her fingers traced slow circles around the rim of the mug, delicate and obsessed, imagining, just for a heartbeat, how those same fingers might feel brushing against my skin instead. Every night, the old house seemed to shrink around us, the distance between our bedrooms feeling shorter, heavier with possibility. The tension built in these tiny, tortuous moments that left me restless afterward. Brushing past each other in the narrow hallway upstairs, her shoulder grazing my arm, the heat of her body lingering long after she'd slipped by. Her shy glances that lasted half a second too long before she looked down, cheeks flushing that soft pink I couldn't stop noticing. One evening before a memorial service she asked me, voice barely above a whisper, if I could zip up the back of her dress. My knuckles grazed the warm, smooth skin between her shoulder blades as I pulled the zipper slowly upward. It was only a second of contact, but it burned like a brand. I jerked my hand away like I'd been scorched, heart hammering so loud I was sure she could hear it. The texture, that fleeting warmth haunted me for days. I lay in bed replaying it, hating how my body reacted before my mind could slam the brakes. What am I doing? She's my dead brother's wife. This is wrong on every level, a betrayal that sits like stones in my stomach. I tell myself over and over that I'm just comforting her, that it's innocent, that the lavender scent clinging to my thoughts is only grief playing tricks. But the truth claws at me every time she looks at me with those sad, needy eyes. My pulse quickens, heat pools low and insistent, and I hate myself for wanting her this badly, for noticing the way her breath catches when we're close, for lying awake wondering what it would feel like if she didn't pull away. The rain kept falling that week, turning the windows into blurry mirrors. And every evening she lingered a little longer in the kitchen, her small hand brushing mine when she passed the sugar, sending that same electric shiver through me. I knew I should create distance. I knew the house was too quiet, too full of memories that made everything feel dangerous, but I couldn't. Because when she sat there, sweater slipping off one shoulder just enough to show the delicate line of her collarbone, the ache inside me grew sharper than the guilt. And then last night, she didn't say goodnight right away. She stood in the doorway to the kitchen, fingers twisting the hem of that oversized sweater, eyes downcast but voice trembling with something raw. "I can't face the empty bed again," she whispered so softly I almost missed it. "Not tonight." Her breath hitched, and for one suspended moment the air between us felt charged, like the storm outside had slipped inside the house. I didn't answer. I just stood there, heart pounding, the scent of lavender wrapping around me like a confession I wasn't ready to make. We began sharing late-night tea in the kitchen, the kettle's soft whistle the only sound breaking the heavy quiet of the house. She'd appear in my brother's old sweater, sleeves too long, hanging past her wrists, the faint trace of his cologne still clinging to the wool. Tangled with her own gentle lavender, our talks started in fragments. Weather, bills, the creak of the old floorboards. Then they stretched, words spilling slower, silences wrapping around us like another layer of warmth. I'd watch her fingers curl around the mug, tracing the rim in slow, unconscious circles, and something inside me would tighten, wondering how that same careful touch might linger elsewhere. Every night, the walls seemed to press closer, the hallway between our rooms shrinking until the air itself felt thick with what we weren't saying. I told myself it was just habit, just to people surviving the same loss under one roof, but my eyes kept drifting to the way the sweater slipped slightly off one shoulder, revealing the soft curve where neck met collarbone, pale and inviting in the dim light. The tension coiled tighter in those stolen, everyday brushes. Passing each other on the narrow stairs, her arm grazing mine, the sudden rush of body, heat through thin fabric lingering like a promise I couldn't shake. Her glances, shy and fleeting, would hold a fraction longer than they should, her lashes lowering as color crept into her cheeks. One afternoon before another service, she turned her back to me in the hallway, voice barely audible. "Could you help with the zipper again?" My fingers trembled as I drew it up, knuckles skimming the warm smoothness of her skin. That single inch of contact sending a jolt straight through me. I stepped back too quickly, pulse roaring in my ears, the memory of that heat searing behind my eyes for hours afterward. God, what am I even thinking? She's my brother's widow, the woman who stood beside him for years, soft and devoted in ways I never deserved to notice. This pull is poison, a betrayal that twists like guilt in my chest every time I let mine wander. I lie there in the dark repeating the reasons it can't happen. Family, loyalty, the way he'd look at me if he knew. Yet when she looks up with those quiet, hungry eyes, searching for something only I seem to understand now, my body betrays me completely. He tries as unbiddened. Breath shortens, and I despise how badly I crave just a little more of her nearness. I tell myself it's comfort, nothing more, but the ache deepens with every shared glance, every accidental touch that feels anything but accidental. She'd linger after the tea cooled, her small hand brushing mine when reaching for the spoon, that brief spark racing up my arm and settling low, insistent. I knew I should pull away, suggest we keep more distance in this too quiet house filled with echoes of what we'd lost. But I couldn't. Not when she sat there, not when she sat there. Hair falling across her face, the sweater's neckline dipping just enough to hint at the delicate line beneath, stirring a hunger sharper than any shame. And then one night, the rain tapped harder against the glass, wind whispering secrets through the eaves. She didn't turn to leave after setting her mug down. Instead, she stood in the doorway, fingers twisting the hem of the sweater, eyes fixed on the floor but her voice carrying a tremble that cut straight through me. "The nights are getting longer, emptier." She paused, breath catching softly. I keep thinking about how warm it felt when we sat close that evening, like the grief didn't swallow everything. Her words hung there, fragile and heavy, the space between us crackling with all the things we hadn't dared name yet. I felt my resolve cracking, the pull of her vulnerability drawing me in despite every warning screaming in my head. What if I swallowed hard, the scent of lavender drifting closer as she took one hesitant step forward, her gaze lifting to meet mine with a need that mirrored my own hidden storm. The air grew thicker, my heart slamming against my ribs, every instinct warring between stepping back and closing the distance that suddenly felt unbearable. It happened on the anniversary of his death, the kind of night that pressed down like a weight we both carried in silence. The house felt to still, every creak in the floorboards echoing what we'd lost, and from her room drifted that old slow ballad, the one they danced to at their wedding, notes trembling through the walls like a ghost refusing to fade. I lay awake staring at the ceiling when her knock came, soft and hesitant at first, then a little firmer at 2 a.m. I opened the door and there she stood, tears already tracing shiny paths down her cheeks, wearing nothing but that thin nightgown that clung to her frame in the dim hallway light. Her hair fell loose around her shoulders and her voice came out in a broken whisper that wrapped around my chest and squeezed. I can't sleep alone anymore. The emptiness keeps pulling me under. She paused, breath shaky, eyes searching mine with raw desperation. Please, just hold me tonight. I'm begging you. Something inside me shattered right then. I didn't think, couldn't think. My arms moved on their own, pulling her across the threshold into the warmth of my bed, her body fitting against mine with a sigh that sounded like surrender and relief all at once, what started as holding. Her head tucked under my chin, my hand resting lightly on her back, turned into something deeper when her fingers curled into my shirt and our faces drew impossibly close. The almost kiss hung there, breaths mingling warm and unsteady, until the space between us vanished in a rush of guilty, need that left us both trembling. Afterward the room felt charged, heavy with the scent of lavender now mixed with something unmistakably us, her soft breathing the only sound cutting through the storm in my head. She slipped away before dawn, but the memory of her warmth lingered on my sheets like a secret I couldn't wash off. From that night it became our hidden rhythm, a routine wrapped in midnight shadows. She'd wait until the house settled into quiet, then pad barefoot down the hall and ease into my room like she belonged there, her small form curling into the curve of my body as if gravity had finally won. We told ourselves it was only healing to broken people clinging to the one bit of light left in the dark, a way to breathe when grief threatened to drown us both. The closeness brought waves of overwhelming comfort, the kind that made the ache in my chest ease for those stolen hours, even as shame whispered warnings I chose to ignore. She needs this, I'd think, lying there with her hair tickling my neck. I need this too. No one else could understand the particular emptiness we shared, the way his absence left holes only we could fill for each other. Her lavender scent on my pillow each morning became an addiction I craved more with every passing day, pulling me through the daylight hours until the next quiet surrender. Weeks slipped into months, and what began as desperate comfort twisted into something hungrier, more possessive. Pulse quickening at the faint creak of her door. The way she whispered my name in the dark, soft and needy, sent heat flooding through me that no amount of guilt could cool. But the more I held her, the tighter the knot in my stomach grew. One night after the closeness left us both breathless and quiet, she cried against my shoulder, tears warm and silent. I still dream of him sometimes, she murmured, voice thick with sorrow. The way he used to hold me. Those words landed like a knife between my ribs, jealousy flaring sharp and unexpected even as my hand kept stroking her back, unable to stop touching her, unable to let go. How could I compete with the memory? Yet the craving only deepened, my fingers tracing the line of her arm with a possessiveness I hated and couldn't deny. The obsession settled in deeper than I wanted to admit, turning every shared glance during the day into a promise of the night ahead. I went from fighting the pull to leaning into it, my mind replaying the feel of her closeness until it colored everything. But beneath the hunger, the questions gnawed louder. Was this still about grief, or had it become something else entirely? Something that might break us both if the truth ever surfaced. Then last week everything tilted again. I was looking for a spare key in her drawer when my fingers brushed an old envelope, yellowed at the edges. Inside was a letter she'd written months before he died, the ink faded but the words cutting clear. She confessed feelings for me that she buried deep out of loyalty, quiet longings she'd never voiced, hidden behind shy smiles and averted eyes. My hands shook as I read it, the room spinning with the weight of what it meant. This wasn't just grief pulling us together. She'd wanted this longer than I'd ever imagined, and now the fear crept in cold. Was I nothing more than a stand-in, a body to fill the space he'd left? I lie here now in the hush before another dawn, her form still warm beside me from the night before. that lavender scent wrapping around us like a confession neither of us can take back. The jealousy and the need tangle so tight I can barely breathe, wondering how much further this can go before the cracks show. Last week the letter changed everything, its folded edges sharp against my fingertips like an accusation I couldn't fold away. She had wanted me in silence long before the funeral flowers wilted, before grief gave us permission to reach for each other in the dark. Those careful words on yellowed paper made the nights feel heavier, as if every time she slipped into my bed she was finally answering a question she'd carried for years. The thought twisted inside me. Was I the man she craved, or simply the closest shadow to the life she once had? My chest tightened with a new kind of ache, one that mixed hunger with the fear of being second best. I lie here at Threa. With her sleeping beside me, her breathing slow and even, that soft lavender scent rising like a secret we both keep swallowing down. The warmth of her back presses lightly against my chest, close enough that I feel every tiny shift, yet far enough to remind me how fragile this all is. Part of me wants to wake her, to ask if she sees him when she closes her eyes, or if it's truly my name that lingers on her tongue. But the words stay trapped behind my teeth, because asking might shatter the only comfort we've built from the ruins. God, how did we let it drift this far? The guilt used to scream louder than the need, but now the need has learned to whisper back, convincing me that stopping would leave us both colder than before. She's my brother's widow, the woman who once belonged to the only family I had left. Every shared breath feels like borrowing something that was never mine to keep. Still, when the house grows quiet and her door creaks open, I open my arms without hesitation, pulled by a gravity stronger than shame. Am I a monster for needing her this way, or just another broken soul grasping at warmth in the endless night? Soft and steady, mirroring the restless rhythm in my veins, she stirs slightly, her hand brushing mine under the covers, and that single touch sends a familiar heat blooming low and slow, the kind that makes my pulse forget its own warnings. I wonder if she dreams of him tonight, or if the letter's truth has finally freed something in her too. The line between healing and hurting has blurred until I can't tell which side we're standing on anymore. Tell me honestly, if your shy widow sister-in-law had begged you to hold her every night, would you have the strength to turn away? Or would you surrender like I did, knowing it might true in what's left of your world? What would you choose when the ache of loneliness feels heavier than the weight of betrayal? Drop your thoughts below. No judgment here. We're all just trying to survive the dark in our own way. If the pull of these stolen moments keeps you up like it does me, and you want the quieter truths, the exact way her voice trembles when she says my name, the way the silence stretches between us right before everything almost slips, hit subscribe. Next time I'll let you closer to the edge of how this tangled story unfolds, or doesn't. For now, I stay here, listening to her breathe, wondering if morning will bring the courage to close the door. Or if I'll simply leave it open again, heart pounding, craving the next almost that never quite ends.